You're listening to Risk and Resolve. And now for your hosts, Ben Connor and Todd Hufford.
Welcome back to another episode of the Risk and Resolve pod. I'm excited. You'll see I'm here by myself today. Again, one of your co-hosts, Ben Connor. But I'm excited to announce a 5-part series that we're going to start today that will be kind of intermingled over the next month and a half with our regular type of episodes. But this 5-part series is really special to me. We are going to release recordings from my grandfather. So a little bit about that, about the backstory of my grandfather, obviously, or maybe not obviously to some. My grandfather, Clay Connor, was the original founder of Connor Insurance. You know, we are a third-generation insurance agency in Indianapolis. So our firm was started by my grandfather. And my grandfather has a very interesting story. And that interesting story was life-changing for him, which was certainly then life-changing for the rest of our family. And his experiences in his personal journey really is a tangible footprint and fingerprints on our family and within the knitting of our company. So a little bit of the backstory of my grandfather. He actually grew up on the East Coast. He went he was an only child, went to Duke University, and ended up enlisting to serve in World War II. And he was stationed in the Philippines and had an incredible war story where he ended up being missing in action for almost over 30 months in the Philippines, organized a guerrilla army and survived and came back to America because of his mother. And since he was an only child. So what we're going to release is him recounting his story. So the context to what you're going to listen to is a tape recording from 1983. Actually, that is the year that he ultimately ended up passing away, was in 1983. So this was months before he passed away. He did a recording with Doug Clanahan of the Indiana Historical Society. And the purpose of this recording was to capture or to detail a historical account of what he experienced in the Philippines while he was missing in action. And so they wanted to capture that war experience, but they also wanted him to detail just like, who are you? Like, what was your background before this incredible event occurred in your life? And the reason that interview existed was because the Indy Star in 1983 wrote an article about his story on Flag Day. And the reason why is that he had more or less the story of a flag that never touched the ground. So a flag that he carried with him through his experience that never touched the ground and was kind of that hope of like adventure and survival. So anyway, they wrote about that and published it on Flag Day. The Historical Society was like, my goodness, we need to capture more of this man's account. And so that's what you're going to hear over the next 5 weeks. And what I'm also pleased to share is that we also are going to have an interview following that 5-week series with the author of the book Resolve. And I have a copy right here. So a copy of this book, Resolve. This book is about his war story, written by Bob Welch. So it's going to be kind of a capstone to this series. We're going to interview Bob Welch, who's an incredible person in and of himself. So we're going to tell his story, but just dig into what his experience was like in writing the story of my grandfather, that biography, and capturing just who he was as a person. So full disclosure, the audio on this, again, it's a tape recording from 1983. So the audio isn't the highest quality, but I still think it's really purposeful to share this story. So I'm pleased to share with you my grandfather, Clay Connor.
Mr. Connor, first of all, I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to record this interview. And the first question I have for you is, what is the place and date of your birth?
August 31st, 1918, Indianapolis, Indiana.
All right. And what were the names of your parents?
My father was Henry Clay Connor, who went by the name of Clay Connor. And my mother was Marguerite Deeringer. And I was the only child.
Never.
And I went also by the name of Clay Connor, or rather Clay Connor Jr. So the community and those who know me in business have always known me as Clay Connor. But I use the legal name and have now in my old age been using it more in order to identify me from my son, Henry Clay Connor III.
Okay. What was the occupation of your father? I assume that your mother didn't work, outside the home, but what did he do?
He was a salesman and was employed by the Allison Coupon Company here in Indianapolis in 1926 and became their Eastern representative in 1928. And their primary target was banks. That was the beginning of the finance business in the American economy, because personal loans were not common prior to that time. So they manufactured the coupon books or finance books, and then branched into General Motors and places like that. So I grew up on the East Coast because we lived in Clarkford, Connecticut, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and Irvington and East Orange, New Jersey.
When did you move away from Indianapolis?
1928.
1928, when you would be about 10 years old, and then moved around in those areas. So your education, it occurred both here and then on the East Coast?
I graduated in Irvington, New Jersey High School in January of 1937. And my father, having a reasonable Southern heritage, decided that my best interest would be served by going to a school below the Mason-Dixon line. So I went to Duke University and was glad for it. Graduated in the class of 1940, just prior to World War II.
What was your, getting back to the high school in New Jersey, what was your major there in high school?
My primary interest was always history and economics.
Very cool. And then at Duke, you also majored in those subjects?
In economics. I had an A.B. degree in economics as a major. I actually had 3 majors, but my primary interest has always been economics and history.
Yeah. Did you take ROTC at Duke or any kind of military contact prior to your graduation?
No, none. I don't believe there was any ROTC at Duke prior to World. I don't know if there was. I wasn't aware of it. I never saw anybody run their own uniform down there.
So after you graduated, now see, let me refresh my memory. It was
June of 1940.
June of 40. This is okay. Prior to Pearl Harbor. Did you get a job right after that, or did you look for work? Or
my father gave me 2 days vacation and subsequently notified me that it was over and that I had commenced. Not only that I had been to commencement at Duke, for which he was very proud, but I was going to commence to work immediately to relieve him of all of his years of burden, although I did work at Duke and enjoyed it, and glad I did. I went to work for the Allison Coupon Company in Indianapolis as a pressman.
What's it, man? What was pressman? Somebody who actually prints the coupons?
Yes, I was running a press for. I didn't do a very good job. I almost killed myself. So I had absolutely no mechanical ability or talent, and I was too interested in all the things that were going on in business to deal with the slowness of the mundane operation of a printing press grinding out thousands of pieces of paper. But the war also was coming on, and I was very fascinated by things that were happening in Europe. So I left there on my own and went back to the East Coast to.
What day would this be? Excuse me, Mr. Connor.
Well, that would be probably September, 1st of September, right after my birthday.
Of 40.
40, and tried to enlist, believe it or not, in the Marines, Navy, Air Force, Army, Air Force. But yeah, there was a waiting list for those schools in those days.
I didn't realize that.
Yes, there was. And they had what they called cadet army. They were officers training in cadet schools. And so I finally was accepted, but at a future date. I was not actually on the list until about the second or third school and of communications, which I went to in January of 41.
Where would that be located?
Scottsfield, Illinois.
Oh, Scottsfield. That's Southern Illinois? Is that
or outside the state? Very close to East St. Louis.
East St. Louis, okay. That'd be West
Scottsfield, yes. It's Belleville.
In Belleville, okay.
Yeah. Well, anyway, in the interim period, I had to do something. So I went to work as a fuller brush man in the daytime, going door to door through Montclair, and which is a very fashionable, large mansion type of town, suburb of Newark.
In New Jersey.
Well, and then at night I worked with Arthur Murray as a
That's interesting.
dance instructor. So I had a lot going and had a wonderful time and enjoyed my days. I got up at 6 and went to bed probably at 1 in the morning. And I was able to buy a new car and do a lot of things. And it was really a fun time. I enjoyed every minute of it, and I was looking forward to getting in the service because, my friends had volunteered or were doing the same thing all over the country. The graduates at Duke were all kind of getting in there, and I was looking forward to the experience.
Did you have contact with your friends during this interim period before you actually got into the service? So, and they were telling you, well, I'm getting into the service. How about you?
Indirectly, I don't think we sit down and discuss the consequences of it, the problems involved, nor did we foresee the magnitude of the involvement of the United States. But it was kind of an underlying thing that was moving in the areas of those young people, most of whom are very patriotic, basically conservative, and I would say 90% of the young Americans and college graduates in those days were thinking in terms of a patriotic effort. All my friends were.
Yes, so it was a different era completely, and I suppose there was a certain, would you consider it like a naivety about the horrors of war? That here's a generation that hadn't really been exposed to it, and I think that might have had something to do with it. World War I is kind of a distant memory, and this is a younger generation who are really enthusiastic about, saving the world for democracy. Is that the reading you got at the time, or the way you felt yourself?
Well, old men don't fight wars.
Right, that's true.
Old men dream dreams, as they say, and young men fight wars. But, excuse me, I don't think that as a young man you have the fear of what can happen, nor do you have the reality of death about you, and or the problems of being cut off or isolated or fever, compelled by fever to be left to die or injured. I don't think you think of all those things. I think you think more in terms of my obligation to my country, especially with the background and the training and the heritage they went with those days.
So when you finally went into this cadet program, this was about June of 41?
The cadet program? No, I didn't go until January I think I raised my hand and was in sometime in mid-December. I was actually inducted in Newark. But my papers, in fact, we've got some orders here. I'll run them off for you. I think I've got those orders, and I don't know the exact date, but I think it was around January the 7th or something that I was to report to Scott Field. I'm not. Yeah,
Okay. Well,
but it's right in there.
Right in that area.
Yeah.
Okay. What was the length of your training there at Scott Field?
I was assigned in July, it seems to me, to Savannah Army Air Base to the 27th Bomb Group, which is a tactical unit. I could have been assigned, I could have taken my choices. You're standing in your class, gives you a choice of whether you can go to, whether you go to a training base or you go to a tactical unit. And I was kind of intrigued with that, picking up a fighter type for bombing low and it's a light bomb group. It was a brand new outfit. It had been organized from the 3rd Bomb down in Barksdale, Louisiana, and signed to then Savannah Army Air Base, which then later became, after the war started, I guess, on Hunter Field, and is now a subdivision, that's done away with. It was just off from Tybee Beach there outside of Savannah, and I was assigned, I chose that, and that would be what most of the guys in the lower part of the class would get, because that would not be the units that would be assigned overseas. Any dummy would know, if they'd sit down and think about it, that you're picking an outfit that's going to be first on the line. Well, I never thought about that. And besides, I thought that'd be interesting if it was true. And as a result, the 27 Bomb was the first group, air group, Army air group, to ever be sent overseas in the history of the United States as a bomb group. They were the first one. Prior to that time, the bomb groups that were overseas were sent as squadrons and made a group overseas, such as Pickham Field or Clark Field. Those groups came together from squadrons that were sent over. Well, we were sent over as an air group.
How many planes?
1,700 men.
1,700 men.
We weren't fully staffed, but we were 1,700 men, and I was a second lieutenant and the group communications officer of the 27th Bomb. And we left San Francisco in November and got to the Philippines about 3 weeks later, which is the latter part of November. And of course, we were bombed on December the 8th without any warning. We knew that Pearl had been hit a few hours earlier, but the few hours was only as the sun traveled, because the Japanese hit us at noon, where they hit them at 6. And of course, the sun west of Pearl does not come up for about 6 hours. So then you got the international dateline. So the 7th of December in Pearl was the 8th of December in Manila. So we were actually hit within hours.
Well, almost close to being simultaneous.
Well, within hours. Yes. The sun and the noon, because of the flight out of Formosa to hit us, where they struck Pearl from aircraft carriers. They struck us from Formosa, so they had the flight time.
So it's almost like a synchronized.
Oh yeah, it was synchronized. In other words, one was planned to hit Pearl. You hear all about the big planning and all that. Well, they also planned to hit Manila at the same time.
We just briefly touched on the actual training, which was at Scott Field, but I want to talk just a little bit about the training there, and then in relationship to the Japanese attack. Could you go into a little bit of detail about the kind of training you got at Scott Field, and do you think that adequately prepared you for what the Japanese did in the Philippines? I mean, on the 8th of December. Now this sounds like a loaded question.
No, that's ridiculous. I was supposed to be group communications officer, and if I had not had some kind of experience with people, in which I basically liked people and had a lot of friends and made friends quickly, I would have been the laughing stock of the group. I was supposed to learn from January to July how to put a transceiver or a transmitter. They don't have transceivers, they have transmitters and receivers, Hallicrafters and 5 kW fields. I didn't know one tube from another. It was all tubes in those days. They were solid state, you know. And I didn't know one tube from another. I was so bad, and I was supposed to be able to knock out CW 10 words a minute, 15 words a minute. I couldn't do. I don't know how I even got through the school. Now, that wasn't because I guess I was stupid. If I graduated from college, I should have been able to learn all that. But I told you earlier, I was not really mechanically minded. How in the world I ever got into that mess, I don't know. But I had some wonderful, tremendously talented, brilliant, in fact, absolutely brilliant, well-experienced communications people who could build a transmitter and receiver with raw material.
Oh, crap.
I mean, we on Bataan had some of the finest talent you ever saw, creative talent. And I had talent in other areas and put it to use. I was probably the best scavenger on Bataan. Our unit did not go hungry, not on Bataan, believe it or not. You know, they talk about the starvation and all that. I know how to get the food. And that was my job.
That's reminds me.
But if you say, well, let's put it this way, I wound up in the guerrilla force, leading guerrilla, and was asked to train after the war by the Army. So they knew I knew something about guerrilla tactics, right? Do you know that in my entire Army career prior to Bataan, I had never fired a 45. I had never fired a Browning automatic rifle. We had Springfield 03s and Enfields. Now, you know what kind of guns those are. We Garand. We had that early one, you know. Yeah. But I can't even think of the M16s and stuff. My golly. And if you've ever fired a Brown or
With a lot of old ammunition, I'll bet, too.
well, World War I.
So I read someplace now that account that appeared on NBC that maybe 1 out of 5 or 10, whatever I don't know what the ratio was, would fire, and then the rest were duds.
I didn't have
an artillery shell, but you didn't have to get.
Not in guerrilla warfare. I didn't have that problem. When, fortunately, whatever ammo I came into worked. Fortunately, because the only thing we used our ammo for, because of the limitations of it, was a defense to escape. Now, when we went in to intimidate and capture or get or steal, whatever you want to put it, in a war, I don't think you can steal anything from the enemy, but that was the general tenure because it was an occupied country with another government. So we were like vandals stealing. But in any event, when we went in, we didn't fire going in. We went in to do a job and fired to get out. See?
That's after the occupation.
Oh, yeah.
Of Japan.
Yeah.
Now let's.
But your initial question was I adequately trained? I couldn't operate a radio. I couldn't transmit or receive anything CW to intelligent because those birds were operating with all this high frequency just fast, and you wouldn't believe how they could transcribe.
Did you get any message traffic in about, there's this?
We had disputes on everything.
John Tolan saying that there was messages coming in that Washington knew prior to the actual attack that he'd broken the purple code, but messages weren't getting out into the field into Hawaii. They weren't getting out into the Philippines. You think that is indeed the case? You didn't get any prior warning, or was there just rumors about the possible Japanese attack prior to the attack on Manila and prior to Pearl Harbor, approximately the same day? Do you recall?
No. We were not even functioning prior to the attack. We were just stationed. We were waiting for aircraft.
Oh, you didn't even have an aircraft?
We didn't have our airplanes were on another ship, on the Megs, which was a freighter. And when the bombs were dropped, they were traveling at a lower rate of speed. And they discovered during the trip that they forgot to put any of the coolant in the engines, so they couldn't fly them anyway. So they took them to Australia. We're an air group that never existed. So you said, and I was trained in communications, and another thing about that, I never had fired a gun, and I'm going to Bataan to defend this Bataan which is a total defense. So I was put in charge of a special communication group. And what I did was find all of the talent. I had carte blanche as a second lieutenant by command of General Wing and General Aiken. General Wing, you ever heard of Toby Wing? An old, she was the movie star prior to World War II. Her father was General Wing. He was there.
Oh, yes, I recall that.
Toby Wing. It's her father.
It's W-I-N-K, is it? Or
I don't know. Maybe.
Wink.
Thanks to that. I don't really know.
Okay.
Anyway, General Aiken, General Wing, and General King, they don't like me. So they thought I could get this group together. So I put this 5th Intercept group communication together, and I became the center headquarters for the group for this whole area of General Command communication.
Oh, very impressive. Did you get message traffic then from Washington after this was
Oh, yeah. We got traffic. Well, we didn't get it direct from Washington. We got it from Del Monte, which was Mindanao, which was primitive from Australia, and we got it from China. We picked up some information from China. We picked up some from the Mindanao. We picked up some from Australia. Depend on the way things are going.
Did you see MacArthur at this time or at all? Or
Just
Wainwright?
twice.
Just twice.
Just twice.
Because it's a very confusing time and probably
Twice.
what kind of hours did you work? You were working,
Probably working hours.
yeah, working hours. You're just living hours. Yeah.
You're talking about after the war started? Oh, there was no working hours. Everybody's you're surviving. If you got 1 million of the enemy coming in to occupy an island and you're there in a uniform that's the wrong color, nobody, there's no working. It's surviving. Everything's surviving.
So you moved out of Manila out to Bataan almost immediately after then the attack on the 8th of December. I'm trying to establish some idea of a time frame, like about a week or whatever.
We set up a general area of information at what was then called Nielsen Field, which was, I became the CEO. I was reading the other day in a book a guy wrote where one of my friends was made the CEO of Nielsen Field, and all this time I thought I was the CEO of Nielsen Field. And I don't know, he probably was. I'm going to see him, I think, at a reunion and ask him. And he was supposed to be, according to him, he was the CEO, but I got the orders from, I can't think of the general's name. He was the head of the Army Air Force or something like that. Anyway, Arnold, no. Anyway, he was in this book, he was the CEO. Well, then I must have been the head of communications at that. But all this time all these years, I thought I was the CEO of the associate.
Where's that located?
Right in the,
it's right in.
It was it's where Makati is, a great big development of shopping and all that.
This is a place where the planes that they were supposed to bring in, what was the vintage or the
827s, I think.
827s that they were supposed to be bringing on this.
The Navy dive bomb.
Oh, that they're bringing up. Boy, they were really ordering for just about everything at that time, just scissor and paste. What about morale after Pearl Harbor, which is, well,
excellent.
It was very good.
Oh, yeah.
Good morale.
Nobody figured we're going to lose anything here at this point. We just were scurrying around to find out what we're going to do. And we were going to defend Manila. So we set up a warning and we set up this communications and tried to get the planes in and out. And we were going to get a few planes off the ground because the jets bombed down most of our planes the first day. The rest of them went to Australia. So we had very little limited Air Force left. And so our primary objective was to try to determine what we're up against. And I didn't even know we were trying to determine what we're up against. The generals would figure that out. I just did what I was told to do.
Right.
And
that's a lieutenant. That's the orders of sergeant, unless I was. You think what are the orders
I was, because the lieutenant doesn't know sergeants usually. Well, thank you. Yeah. Anyway, I was dealing with the sergeants. They were giving me his word, but it was a madhouse.
But it's a good point that you made about the level of morale. I think the common convention is that you always hear, and of course they're talking about after the defeat, but the fact that my guys, they held out for 5 months on when you count Corregidor, and they held out for 4 months if you count Bataan before April, on April, I guess it was the 9th.
April 9th.
Yeah, you wouldn't forget that day. And then May 6th for 1942 for Corregidor. But the fact was that the morale level was high. And I heard an old expression was, ignorance is bliss. Do you think the fact that you didn't know your situation with respect to Washington, they said on this documentary that help was not going to be coming on the way, but the men there didn't know it. If you had known that there was no help going to be on the way, could you have held out that long? There was always that hope to really hold you together, that, the reinforcements, the cavalry was going to come in at the last minute, like in the movies, and save you. I mean, did you even think, or was it just a case of one day to the next and you never really even thought about it? Like, we're going to hold this thing no matter how long it takes.
Well, the Bible said it's appointed unto man was to die, and then the judgment. Well, he may know he's going to die, but he doesn't live like it and walk around afraid all the time, does he?
No.
Every day's hope. Every day's hope. Well, the fact of the matter is that very few people seem to remember that President Roosevelt got on the radio again when certain things had happened in Bataan. And MacArthur had been ordered in April in March 22nd or 3rd to Australia, which was really inside stuff. See? And no one understood it except the West Pointers, with whom I had real good contact, and was immediately told, if you were president of the United States, and their rationale was excellent, and you had a man who really knew the Orient, would you order him out in order that he could regroup and come back, or would you let him die on the Monday? I said, I'd order him out. He says, then do you think all the scuttle was MacArthur escapes and we're left behind? See? And I said, I think I would order him out. I'd want to find a man out of there. And of course, how you going to get a bunch of them out there and we'll get them out? I said, tell him about a PT plane. But the president of the United States got on the radio and I heard it. I heard it coming out of Honolulu, that in asking the question of Bataan, he said they were expendable. That was President Roosevelt's words, that they are expendable. Now, when you hear the president of the United States say they are expendable, that's a write-off. Mm-hmm. But if you're not there, and you're not one of the 30,000 men, and you're not one of the 30,000 of the men's parents or brothers and sisters, they're expendable. You go to the next page, you read the next obituary. But when it is you who they say, you stop and think, what does that mean? Is that propaganda? That's propaganda. Couldn't be true. The president of the United States woman say you're appointed wants to die. You see?
So there's a disbelief about this. Like,
it's just futures, and not me.
Right.
You follow?
Mm-hmm. Right.
So it was a startling thing, and it was a reality, but you took the bull by the horns and you determined to survive. Mm-hmm. And if you're determined to survive, you're going to use every feasible, known technique, and available method to do just that.
Mm-hmm.
Survive. Yeah. And that's what we did for 4 minutes.
For 4 months, you did that. When did you actually escape from Bataan? Is it towards the end, or was it after the actual fall of Bataan and on April 9th that your escape took place?
There's a man that owns a radio station down in I guess it's Montgomery or Montgomery, Tuscaloosa, Alabama. His name's Bert Bank. He was a captain at the time, and he's still alive. And Bert was on the front line, and he saw the Japanese breaking through, and he had a portable radio because had a radio. They were portable unit, not in portable like we were. And he was on there warning that the Japanese had broken through the front line. They were coming south, and that they were killing everybody in the way, even though they ordered. A lot of Filipinos were carrying white flags and so on. The men put down their arms. They were still strafing and killing everybody along the roadsides, moving the tanks in the zigzag pattern, killed people on both sides of the road. Get out of the way. This is Bert Bay. The Japanese are both concerned. He kept repeating it. And I knew Bert's in my outfit, 27 pounds. But he was stationed up there, and I was stationed in communications, you see.
And so you were further down the peninsula, down towards the Corregidor area.
I was at what's called Little Baguio.
Little Baguio. Okay. Mm-hmm.
And the death march started at Martinez. It went all the way up here to San Fernando, where they put them on the trucks, then took them up Bataan, which is right here.
Uh-huh.
But I was stationed in Baguio. Bert Belk was right here. And the Japanese broke right through here and then scattered, went this way, and they were coming down these main roads to clear out. Well, the Americans and the Filipinos are all up on the sides of the mountains and back to the main road and so forth. So over to Baguio, the communication center.
Okay.
And so I realized that things were in pretty bad shape. So I talked to General Staff, and we were getting ready to, we immediately sent the demolition squads out to blow up all the ammunition dumps, which we were right in the middle of ammunition dumps. So for the next 24 hours, that place was unbelievable. We had all kinds of mortars and with heavy shells and everything. Just it blew out every tree in the area. It blew out everything. It was unbelievable. We were all in shelters for at least 20 hours while this thing was going on, just blowing all the guns in, struggling with it.
It took 20 hours plus to
it was unreal. It was absolutely unbelievable.
Fine.
Well, anyway, we got all that done, and of course, nobody came in there alone. Nobody was coming in or going out. It was impossible. Went on all night and all the next day. So the next day, a guy by the name of Anderson, Captain Anderson, who had been in the Philippines prior to World War II, was owned an airline out of Manila, married to a Filipino girl, was Lieutenant Lapham and a few others, 6 of them, were coming through from another area and said, would you like to go along with us? We're going to try to contact Colonel Thorpe, who was commissioned by General MacArthur to escape in early January from this area. Went up through here and set up a guerrilla movement right at this point. And he was supposed to be operating on the backside of the Japanese from this point and gathering help from the Filipinos, strength and unifying.
So that's just a rallying point then for any of the Filipinos, some of their soldiers and such.
Yeah, but the Japanese were a lot stronger force than the Americans had anticipated. And Thorpe didn't get that job done very successfully. He blew a few bridges and a few things, but it was tough. Well, anyway, we didn't know that. We'd have communication with Thorpe from McGuire. And but he was going. So I went to the general staff, who I, of course, was working with, and asked them what the rules were, regulations. And they said that it's every man for himself, but they advised me, knowing the Philippines as well as they did, to stay with the group because there would be safety in numbers. And according to the Geneva Conference, with the treaties, with the amount of 30,000 Americans, we would be treated civilly and be given pretty good treatment. The Americans would be returning within 6-8 months, and it'd be the best. But if I escaped, then I was, if I was captured, I'd be killed and subject to be killed because that's the rules of the game. So they said, first of all, the mountains are too treacherous and we'll never make it. And I said, well, Anderson seemed to think you can. How about me doing it? Try it. But if you want to try it, sorry, that's okay. According to the rules of war, anybody that escapes, why, that's what they're, that's part of it too.
The Japanese, they were signatories to the Geneva Convention.
Are you kidding? Anything about the job?
They didn't know anything about it.
Only when they were captured. Not when they captured. You see, the thing you have to understand that we didn't know was that the Japanese and the Koreans, who they had sent into the Philippines, were pretty rough, uneducated people. And they thought that anybody that surrendered was a coward, and that you die rather than surrender to your emperor. You do not surrender. And anyone that surrendered is absolutely nothing. He's dirt, and he should be punished. He should be penalized. The results of that are that they treated the Americans that way.
But the Americans didn't know that at the time. You were not that knowledgeable. Anybody was knowledgeable about Japanese culture at that time. Is that correct?
Nothing.
Uh-huh.
We knew absolutely what. I'm going to cut it back a second. So the terrible problem was that there should have been some communications relevant to indoctrination and teaching. If you're going to be sent into a zone, you should have some background.
Mm-hmm. This is a failure, I think, of the high command, not letting the troops know the consequences. It seems incredible to me that there wasn't somebody at the State Department that didn't know something about Japanese culture, that knew that the Japanese felt that anybody who surrenders is a coward and should be dealt with harshly. Forget about the Geneva Convention. And yet here are these people who are up against hopeless odds. They, in some cases, the number of men who died in prison camps or in the death march, they would probably have been better out, fighting and taking some of the Japanese with them because they weren't going to make it anyway. And rather than surrendering, and of course it was just a hopeless situation. You took the best approach, but why did you decide that, hey, I'm not going to surrender with these 30,000. I'm going to take my chances out in the jungle. Do you recall what made you change your mind or decide to join the minority rather than the majority?
I suppose different men are subject to different thought processes, and I considered it and thought it would be an adventure. And as long as I was free, I would have some say over my destiny. And I didn't think that I knew nothing about the mountains. I grew up in New York City, area, part of the metropolitan area of New York, or Harper, Connecticut, or Harrisburg, or Indianapolis. And I had never been on a camping trip in my whole life.